to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Sarah. I'm the Director of Family and Community Services at Child Strive. And prior to my coming to Child Strive, I have done a lot of work over the years around adoption and foster care and attachment and early childhood trauma. So that's sort of my forte. That's where I have done most of my ongoing training. And so I am just here to share a little bit, kind of the tip of the iceberg with you about attachment in the hurt child. And what I mean by hurt is just any child who's been through a traumatic loss, like death of a parent or uh, disconnection from a parent because of foster care or kinship care or maltreatment or war or medical interventions that resulted in long separations. So really, it's a wide gamut, but hopefully you're all here because you're interested in helping kids recover and heal from their early childhood traumas. And that said, let me see if I can advance this. There we go. So what we're going to talk about today, just as an overview of like what is secure attachment and why do we care, some actual strategies that you can take away if you're parenting or caregiving for a child. These will be really helpful. But I think even if you're even like in a classroom and you know a child has struggled with this, or you're a coach on a team and you're noticing that one of the kids is having a hard time joining, these are all things that could be really useful. So, the end, we'll talk about keeping ourselves as regulated as possible because we are the tools of our trade, and how we are really affects the little ones in our lives. At the very end, I do have some resources. I let Rebecca know that if you're interested in getting a copy of the slides, my contact information is on there as well. And since I do have to leave right at 4, I wanted to make sure people had a chance to ask further questions, or if you want to consult with me, then you'll have a way to do that. So, what is secure attachment? I hope this might be review for a lot of you, but it's essentially an enduring bond between a child and their caregiver, usually their primary caregiver. Maybe they have more than one, but it's one that lasts lifelong. And it's more than just a, a, a caring, loving bond on the outside. It's very deep. It really becomes that child's internal working model or schema of how relationships go and what they can expect from relationships. Um, it is has to play into their sense of self, their sense of value and worth, their ability to regulate themselves, even to persevere when they have a setback. There's been a lot of research done on different styles of attachment, which I'm not going to go into today, but the reason we talk about secure attachment is that it does have the best lifelong outcomes for children. It occurs when you have a parent who is very sensitive to that child's needs and responds effectively when they have a need, whether that's my diaper's dirty, I'm hungry, or I just need a snuggle. So that cycle of responding as a child has a need builds this and reinforces this sense that I am worth taken care of. I am worth someone else's time. When a parent delights in me, then I can delight in them. I also know that I'm worthwhile. So on a parent's end, and I say parent loosely because I know folks might be kinship caregivers or foster parents or even aunties or people down the street. It feels rewarding to be in a relationship like that. There's some give, there's some reciprocity to it. And I like this picture in particular because you can see there's sort of a relaxed body tone. They're looking outward together at something, and that mutual experience that they're having helps to build that sense of safety and interest. Like, you're interesting. I really want to know what you're thinking and feeling. Um, I think one of the challenges with bringing children into your home that have not had this from the get-go is that really invested parenting strategies that would maybe result in pretty secure attachment right away with like a newborn can take some time to really build, and you can't even really predict it. So um, we'll talk a little bit more about the short, medium, and longer term, but it's something that children can become earned secure in their attachment style, but it can take years. And in fact, sometimes not even until adulthood do they have the kind of meaningful relationships where they feel like they're really at home with that person and that they can be their authentic self. So when I say a child can be hurt, what I'm really talking about is that our little brains, as we're growing, they're just prediction machines, basically. And the brain has developed to give extra weight to things that are threatening. So if we've been hurt by something before, and that means, I mean, that could be I was hungry for way too long, or I was left all alone and I didn't know where my family was. Those kind of hurts are not physical in the same way as like a bruise, but our brains as a young one will remember that, and it will even give it more weight than it would to a positive interaction. And that's a survival mechanism. It's how we evolved. It's to get us out of danger. So when our brains are doing this great job of protecting us and trying to get us out of trouble, it cannot also be learning, and it cannot also be um, engaged in that reciprocity of mutual enjoyment. So, unfortunately, for kids that are even in utero exposed to undernutrition or domestic violence or other things that have an influence on their earliest development, those frameworks become part of their neural, that's how they're building their brain. It's being built in a way to expect these kind of hardships. And even if you have a child, like I know this comes up often where a child is adopted right there in the delivery room and handed to their adoptive family, and the adoptive family thinks like from the very moment this child was born, we've told them how much we love them and that we're here for them and we're going to protect them. But honestly, that they weren't there for the first 9 months. So the first 9 months of your child's brain developing are just as important as the ones that they have outside of the pregnancy. So I just bring that up to say that, like, for better or for worse, the architecture of our brain is pretty well established by our first year. Unless new experiences and nurturing relationships arrive in like full on, full force, our neuroplasticity or our ability to change our brains does decrease exponentially with age. So early intervention is really, really important. So the hurt child, let's just say a little bit in an overview, often very, very slow to trust, right? That brain, that prediction machine is trying to keep them safe by saying like, hey, everything in our experience this far shows us that you just cannot trust people. The child often usually concludes that they're the problem, unfortunately. They might try to beat you to the same conclusion by acting in ways that sort of bring down disappointment and frustration and sometimes even anger directed toward them. So the child that has been through a lot of early trauma and suffering, they often assume that they have to survive on their own. And we can see this even in cases of like 3-year-olds who feel obligated to care for younger siblings, who step in and try to do the things that the foster parent is there to do or the parent is there to do. They have spring-loaded defenses, by which I mean there's not even 1 second between their sensing something not being right and their body taking a defensive posture and either fight, flight, freeze, or what have you. They often, as a result, also because of this sensitized nervous system, have really hard time getting to sleep, staying asleep, being asleep during the times of the day you want them to be asleep, feeding, sensory processing. Like when you think of all the parts of the body that our nervous system really has deep work to do, it's often our GI, um, and how we take in the sensory inputs that are coming into us all the time at a very high rate. So these things, they can be resolved or they can persist for years and years. So again, that early intervention is really important. It does depend on the child's neural frameworks and how sensitive and patient their caregivers are, but it's also as tempting as it is to predict by, their fifth birthday, things will be a lot better, or by the time they've lived in this home, as long as they have not lived in this home, they will be much better. I avoid trying to give people a sense of how long things can take, um, because if you think about it, a child's recovery and healing, it's really asking them to do two conflicting things. Like their mind is telling them, oh, yeah, this is different than it was before. This adult seems very kind. This person has my interests at heart. But their heart is telling them the opposite is true, right? So it's like a constant tug of war between what seems logically to be the case and then what they remember in their own nervous systems about what life was like before. And so, because we're asking them to do this dance, we can't, there's no real great timeline for that. So, bottom line though, if you have a child in your family who has been hurt, the number one thing is that they start to feel safe. And when I say safe, that doesn't mean just physically that they're safe, but that they start to feel it in their bones that they're safe, that they are comfortable in their own skin, that they can rely on that safety not going away. And that's, can be looking like, okay, as much as we want to take this child out into the community and take them to parades and show them all the things that they may have been missing, what they really need is routine and quiet and calm and fewer visitors and not as many photo shoots, right? This is not like Instagrammable, but we're asking caregivers to really make their days predictable, and lots of reminders through the whole course of the days that their needs are getting met or they will be met. Um, Patience with them because they're as we all do when we're put under stress, we often revert to our kind of base instincts of how to behave, and for them that's following their primary narrative, right? That I wasn't enough for whatever reason, I wasn't worthy of care. So last, I would say that they do employ often confusing bids for attention, like a little bit of, yes, I want you, but also I really want to keep you held at arm's length. And that can be really confusing for caregivers. Um, I'll keep moving on here. I wanted to share a little clip. One of the, I think, best uh, people on the planet, really, who has done a lot of work around attachment and early losses is Dr. Karen Purvis. She has since passed, but she worked in um, creating kind of a overview of working with kids that have experienced early hardship. And her institute is called TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And this is just a little clip, kind of just to cue you into some of the things that she and her team honed in on as essential ingredients for establishing that trust with children. So So hopefully this plays.
TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention, has at its core building a trusting relationship. It has 3 sets of principles, and they look at the child as a whole. When you think about development, the baby cries and I say, yes, I will comfort you. And so this child learns that they have a voice. They learn trust, which is the lesson of the first year of life. I can trust. There are so many children from hard places, and for those children, their capacity to trust has been fiercely damaged. The brain chemistry of a child who cries and no one comes is dramatically altered. The child with a history of trauma or loss or abuse has no hope of healing without a nurturing relationship. In every way that I make time and space, that I give touch, eye contact, and I give words, I am going to empower this child to go back to the beginning of what he or she should have experienced in the arms of a loving parent that said, when you cry, I will come. The phenomenal thing about a trust-based intervention is, as we connect to this child, as we build safety, we actually change the brain chemistry. We change the wiring of the brain. This is really the heart and soul of all that we are and all that we do. Do I look into the child's eyes? Do I touch their arm when I talk to them? When they talk to me, do I stop what I'm doing and talk to them? This is the essence of mindfulness. The excitatory chemicals about I'm afraid, I'm hungry, I'm cold, those are balanced when the caregiver comes and gives warmth. All regulation occurs first with an external regulator. So in the beginning, I regulate all. They're cold, I bring warmth. They're crying, I bring myself. And out of my regulation, their brain develops capacity for self-regulation. If this child didn't have this experience, that child doesn't feel safe. This chemistry can be altered, first by knowing they're safe, second by nutrient-rich foods, third by my environmental regulation of that child's emotion, and fourth by appropriate exercise. So we can balance brain chemistry by creating a holistic environment. We clearly have to deal with behavior. Correcting means showing a child the right behavior, praising him when he gets it, and showing it to him until he can get it right, and showing him with no fear and no shame so that he builds success, not a greater sense of failure. So the message of hope for our families is that we can help our children to dramatic levels of healing. We simply have to be devoted to it and be willing to invest what it's going to take.
What I really, really love about this is that Dr. Purvis and others have really reinforced that we are the tool. We are the thing that the child needs in order to heal. We cannot look to the media or any other kind of external force to provide for our children the regulation that they need. It comes from us. And so I say that because right now we have a lot of children with the sense of emptiness. There's a hole that is not being filled, and they're they're filling it another way with internet addiction, connecting with strangers on social media, substance abuse. We absolutely cannot let the needs that they have be filled in these dangerous ways. So, oops, let me get to the next one. The trust-based relational intervention focuses on 3 different things, and she said them pretty fast, but the first one was connecting, the second one is empowering, and the third was correcting, which if she spent a little bit talking about that is doing it not in a punitive way, but in an explanatory way. Like, let me show you, here are the things that matter to me, that these are values in our home, and I'm going to give you a chance, and I'm going to give you another chance. I'm going to give you another chance to get it right. So what I did was I just kind of put some short-term parenting strategies, medium-term, and long-term into her framework as just a way to organize this. So as I said, like in the very first early days of a child joining your home or re-entering your home after something very hard, the focus is on establishing that safety and predictability, right? So getting routines down, slowing down, as she said, be mindfully and fully present with them. Just trying stuff, like learning about them, what kind of flavors do they like? What kind of smells do they like? What kind of things do they really not like? Are they okay with this kind of touch? Are they not okay being touched at all? Like those are the things you're really figuring out in those first days. And you're trying to find what are the ways I can connect with this kiddo. Empowering strategies, those are like a little more complex. So figuring out ways that your child can tolerate you co-regulating with them when they have big emotions, as they will, providing reassurance, maybe even walking them around the house to show them, hey, these are the locks that I lock every night so that no strangers can come in. This is what, this is our dog. This is where he likes to sleep. These are his favorite toys. He doesn't like it if you take this one, but he doesn't care about that one. And what's his job in the family? His job is to keep the floor clean of all the food we drop, but also protect us from, those squirrels that live outside and might eat our food. So you're just giving them a sense of where they fit into the family, giving them choices that they can actually make a decision. A lot of kids are never given choices and they're just expected to go along with whatever has happened. And so I have a note here on no's. Of course, no is very common in like toddlerhood, but kids that get really stuck on no often have never been given a chance to say no when it really mattered, right? If they have had sexual abuse or other intrusions by adults, or if they've been asked to do something that wasn't even developmentally appropriate for them and they didn't know how to do it, they didn't get a chance to say no. And sometimes they do need a chance to be able to say no. And that can be saying, like, no, I don't want pasta. I hate pasta, but I will eat this other thing. So giving them a chance to lead, celebrating when they try something new or if they have a success, that goes a really long way. And then to Karen's correcting point, I think in the very beginning, you're really just trying to keep kids safe, right? You're trying to give them a sense of what's in bounds, what's out of bounds. And again, lots of chances to do over. Sometimes I even will take a kid and just spin them around and be like, oh, let's try that again. We're rewinding, we're going back. And here's what you want to say this time. If a child does something really uh, within normal limits, but they come at you kind of like disrespectful, you can be like, oh, I see where you're going with that. Let's try it again, but this time with respect. And again, you're coaching them. This is what it would look like if you were being respectful right now. In the middle term, and I'm thinking of this as like, okay, the child is in your home now for quite some time, maybe a year. You've gotten to know some of their basic needs and the way they express themselves. You're building. This is time to really build on being playful and that connection, that mutual enjoyment of activities. And you're really trying to reinforce to them that you're fun and it's great to spend time with you. So when I say build in rewards to spending time with you, I don't mean like, okay, here's another token to use at the video machine, or, here's $10 for spending time with me today. No, it's like, we got to do something really exciting today that maybe not every family gets to do. We got to go see a lighthouse and have a picnic. That was pretty amazing. I have a kid right now who loves food. So maybe it's just incorporating different tastes and kind of the excitement of going out to eat as a reward for just being together and spending that time together. So again, still under the empowering banner, we're really giving kids a lot of opportunity to discover who they are, what they like, what their talents are, Can we help them build mastery in any area? Could be sports, it could be school, it could be learning how to read. The point is that they really have that emptiness still inside that they might not be really worth our time and attention. So all of our effort is going into reflecting to them that they do matter. They are unique and interesting and worth all of our time. So we're putting a lot of emphasis in their sense of internal worth and value, and giving them things to do that are constructive according to their age. Correcting, again, we're making it very safe to make mistakes, just as we would want someone to be tolerant of ourselves making mistakes. I mean, if at work I make a mistake, I want it to feel like, oh, okay, we can learn from this. We can do it differently next time. So however old you are, it should still be safe to make mistakes. And then as they get older, we're really kind of pushing them toward learning how to repair with other people. That could be apologizing. I mean, to this day, I don't know a young person who can, on their own, come up with a gorgeous apology. They need help. They need a lot of side-by-side coaching. Maybe even some scripting and practicing that script together before they go and do the apology. That's something, if there's more than one parent in a household, that could be really helpful. If a child needs to repair with one parent, the other parent can kind of coach them through that process. I will add too that as you've gotten to know this child over time, you might be noticing that something that gets in the way a little bit of their self-regulation or their building mastery in an area is just their unique sensory profile. They could have some real strengths, but they could also have some areas of weakness. So it's a great time to either bring in an occupational therapist to do an assessment, or maybe even a full neuropsychiatric evaluation. Because the earlier you do something like that, the more insight you have into where they may be struggling or might in the future struggle. And it's also a chance to kind of let go yourself of maybe an expectation you didn't even realize you had that wasn't super appropriate. So an example I have is I have a child who underwent an assessment by a psychologist, and the psychologist said, she doesn't use her vision to search for things. And I was like, what does that mean? It basically is like if you go to the refrigerator and you're just like, where's the mayonnaise? And every time you go to the refrigerator, you just immediately give up and say, I just can't find it. That search and the strategy of like moving things around to try to find what you need, she just doesn't do that. And so once I knew that, I could let that expectation go. Like, yeah, it's kind of annoying to have someone constantly be giving up that like they just don't see it. They don't see what I'm trying to point out. But now I have that insight and I can say, oh, okay, well, let me show you where it is. Or here's how I found it. I did this and this. And that's when I was able to see it. I hope that makes sense. Long-term strategies. This is, I mean, 5 years old to 35 years old. Okay. We know that development happens over the long game, and that ourselves as tools that our children need, we're not, expired after 20 years. We are still very much in the business of helping them learn how to be in the world. And you can continue a lot of the same strategies, that serve and return type play, games of catch, or word games, anything you can do to kind of show them that you're interested in their world, in their friends, in their special interests. Even if you have to fake it, do that, because they're still experimenting and they're trying to find their own identity, which had hits to it in the very beginning of their development. So it may take longer for them to kind of feel like they know where their path is in life, and that is okay. We I saw a picture someone had once, and it said, what would your child be doing if their success was an inevitable outcome, or something like that? And I just thought about it, and I was like, yeah, what would they be doing? Not these same things where they're constantly getting in trouble and failing. Like they would choose something else. They would want to be doing something where they would absolutely be successful. And so help them find those things. I mean, it could be sports, it could be cooking and baking, or sewing, or exploring in the backyard, looking at stuff under microscopes. It doesn't really matter. I mean, the important thing is that they're getting opportunities, and they're not being shut down or like put into a narrow category of what they're allowed to be interested in. This is also a great time to pull in those school supports if you haven't already, looking into whether an IEP is appropriate to support their learning, or a 504 plan to just help them be more at ease in the learning environment. And then, of course, they're going to make mistakes. I mean, that is a huge part of older childhood. And they really do need to feel some real consequences. I will tell you, it is hard. The brain has a hard time as it develops when they haven't had balanced reactions to experiences. In other words, they've all been really overwhelmingly negative. Um, then, when you're later growing and you're trying to think about your impact on others, it's skewed. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so, children who do the best at being able to hold in mind that other people might have thoughts and feelings that are different than their own, they're kids who have had from the get-go very secure attachment, and they have had their own thoughts and feelings mirrored back to them by a caring adult. If you don't have that, I'm just saying, it takes the brain longer to sort of figure that out, have intuition, have that what's it called, like sense of like body awareness about what is someone else's posture and body language trying to tell you. These are complex things. So the way they develop it, if they're kids that didn't start life out on the best foot, is discussion, talking them through what happened. And I love to use the restorative questions of like, what were you thinking about at the time that happened? Like, what was going through your mind? No judgment. I just really want to know. And then what can they identify any impacts that their behavior might have had? And this can take a lot. It can take a long conversation with a little bit of coaching as to where do you think your impact started and stopped? Because maybe you didn't think about the impact it had on me, or on your teacher, or on your best friend. And then finally, like, what kind of repair might be needed? What would be a natural thing that we should consider at this point, now that so and so's kind of mad at you, or you think you might have really hurt somebody's feelings and you're not sure how to get back into their good graces. All of this, I'm just going to underscore, would be completely impossible if parents were not refilling their cup constantly. If you have ever co-regulated with another human being who is upset, or who is scared, or who has a lot, just other big feelings, you know that it takes a lot out of you. And so it is not optional to be doing self-care. It is absolutely essential. There is a real need to tap out at times. And if you are a single parent, like I am, I have 3 adopted kids and 1 homegrown. It is hard to do this, but you can get very creative. Things like, oh my gosh, it's 5 o'clock and I haven't had my shower yet. I need to go do that. Here you go with a puzzle, give me 10 minutes. Or asking a friend, hey, I am really burning out. Can you take the kids for an hour? Just an hour, and I will be back. Or you can swap. You take their kids for a day, they take yours. It's sometimes all you get, and it's wonderful if you have people that will do that with you. Um, I always tell people to use anything your workplace will give you. If you get parental leave paid, awesome. If it's unpaid, awesome. You want it. You want it to be able to start setting down that tone of safety and that you're reliable and that you can meet your child's needs. And no amount of time is really enough, but whatever you have, I would take it. And then for sure, looking into your own particular tolerance, like what informs your body. Do you have your own sensory sensitivities? Do you need more than the average amount of sleep that other people might need? Are you going through menopause? Are you, healing after having undergone a cancer treatment last year? Like, whatever it is that your body needs, really dig in and figure that out and come up with a plan to make sure that your body is getting that, because otherwise it really will burn out so quickly. Therapy is always good. I also really encourage support groups, because what's shareable is bearable. And sometimes you don't need a therapist. You just need other people who have been there with you and can be like, yeah, I didn't know what would happen if you peed um, down the heat registers, but now I do, right? I didn't know a kid could do that. I didn't know a kid could scream for 3 straight hours. Who knew? Now I do. Like, what would you do in my shoes? My kids were always the one of the hardest times of the day was for some reason dinner time. And so one of my strategies as a single parent was invite someone over, right? Anybody, will you come have spaghetti with us on Thursday night? Please, because I am tapped out by that time. And they need other people to talk to and tease with them and other stuff. And, like it just can't be me all the time. And that dynamic of just having a new person over, probably a lot of you can relate to that. Like it's just kind of exciting and interesting when a new person comes over for the evening. So I did that pretty commonly. And again, I already said this, but I'm just going to restate it. But like co-regulation of kids that have very sensitive nervous systems for whatever reason, it just taps our well of resources, and we just have to replenish it. It doesn't come by magic overnight. Really have to invest in it. So here I have a few resources that I wanted to point out to you all. Karen Purvis is the person that was in the little video. She's got other videos on YouTube that go into a lot more detail about specific behaviors and things. She's also got a book written together with my friend Lisa about just kind of that parent experience of working to reestablish a relationship that's been harmed in the past by abuse or neglect or something else. Robin Goebel is so fascinating. She is a social worker, but she thinks like an occupational therapist. And I always recommend her website to folks. She's got a podcast. She's got a fantastic book. It's not necessarily kids that have been adopted or in foster care, although that's a lot of the kids that she's worked with professionally, but including kids that have neurodiversity and other big behaviors that are hard to deal with, especially in public. And she's got fantastic strategies. Deborah Gray, it's local here. She's got a great book called Attaching Through Love, Hugs, and Play. And that is it has great pictures in it. Very easy to read. You can order it through a bookstore or a library, but you can also go to her website there. And then this is an older book, but it's been around for a while. And if you happen to have a toddler in your home, for the first time. I found it really eye-opening reading that before my daughter came home at age 2.5. Um, Challenged a lot of my assumptions about like how how much her brain had already developed by 2.5, and that I wasn't getting promised any easy times. That is a fantastic book. One that I forgot to put on here, I believe, is it's called the what's it called? Adoptionlearningpartners.com. If you go to adoptionlearningpartners.com, they have little courses that you can take, very inexpensive, very worthwhile. They can be on any kind of topical area. And actually, my adoption agency required that we take some certain number of hours through them, but I thought they were very good. The Adoption Medicine Clinic at UW Pediatrics is a very special group of pediatricians who have extensive experience working with kids who are adopted internationally or from foster care. I took my kids there when they were very young, but then I went to our local, I don't know, doctors for convenience, and have just recently started bringing my teenager back to them because they just have such a sensitivity to what that early development is like for kids when they've been under a lot of toxic stress. They have seen it all, but they're so kind and they're very balanced in their approaches. Anything that you're struggling with, from like sleep to substance use to I remember asking them like, how many eggs is it okay for my kid to eat at one time? Because when she first came home, I think there was a real like protein deficit, and I was worried about her kidneys. And they're like, no, she's fine. She can have as many hard-boiled eggs as she wants. Um, so I really recommend, if you're in the Seattle area and you have kids with either special neurological needs or who have been through early childhood trauma, I do recommend them quite highly. And then Deborah Gray, who I mentioned before, has this lovely little tip sheet that's available to anyone online. Top 10 tips for your first year of placement. And she also has some great ones about how to talk about your foster adoption journey with friends and family who are asking you maybe too intrusive of questions, or who don't really get that you're trying to calm things down and slow things down for your new family member so that they can sort of establish safety. Yeah, the last point I will make is that there's a lot of great stuff online. However, the information that we're getting now, again, about children and what they can find online is pretty startling. And given, like, if you think about any system that's kind of been overloaded, like a circuit, our children have had overloaded circuits since they were very, very little. And the internet is not a great, um, it doesn't play well with overloaded circuits. So again, kids will go and seek and find things online that they feel like are missing somehow. You want that to be you. You don't want it to be whatever they find online. And so if you need help, like I still need help trying to get my home Wi-Fi set up so that it can filter out pretty harmful content. um, Go find that help, like wherever you can. I'm not 100% sure, but the library is a great place to start. um, on the other hand, they also have wonderful books, like Antoine Fisher has a memoir called Finding Fish, and it's about his time spent in foster care as a young child, how he grew up, the adults in his life that stepped in and provided him the nurturing that he needed at a critical time, and how he got steered into a really, wonderful adulthood. It's very heartwarming. And it gives a lot of hope. So in those moments that you might not be feeling as much hope, that's when you really want to connect with other friends and other families, either through adoptive friends and families of Greater Seattle or wherever you can find that, or start your own little cafecito on your own with some other parents in your community. Um, it's very true that, uh, children need a village and parents need their village. So if you're a caregiver of a child with some of these special needs and you need to go find your village, you can build it if you have to. If you have more questions and things that I can help with, my contact information is here. You're welcome to reach out to me with an email and say, hey, do you know about a resource for this or that? I'm happy to share what I know, having been in the Puget Sound area for, I don't know, quite a while. And I have a lot of colleagues who are actively still in um, therapy with kids from a developmental trauma background. So, yeah, I'm happy to answer a question or two, if there are any. Thanks for joining me today.